Rivalry week is in the books, and it was one for the ages. We had upsets, brawls, flag plantings, and much, much more. We are going to speak some very harsh truths tonight. We're going to talk about Ryan Day. We're going to talk about the SEC, the Big Ten, Clemson, Miami, and we're going to get to the Lone Star Showdown, of course. And, of course, we're going to give you our final top 12 of the season, and we're going to hash out some ranking debates right here live on air. We're obviously going to talk about college football playoff as the regular season is now done. And we'll look ahead at the end of the episode to conference championship weekend. This is Always Talking Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton. As always, Home Field Apparel is our main sponsor of the show. ATB 15 gets you 15% off at checkout. I believe their Black Friday sale went on this weekend. I know a lot of you guys hopped on, used our code. We appreciate it. Used our link. It's great. We appreciate it. Lance, first I want to just, massive thank you to my wife, and I'm guessing both of our wives, for allowing us to just park ourselves in front of the TV all day long and consume as much college football as we could. It might take a while, but we're going to talk about it all. And, of course, we're going to start in Columbus, Ohio, where the world-famous Buckeyes came into the game 20-point favorites. And they lost 3 in a row to Michigan. They had controlled their destiny in front of them for the Big Ten championship. And Michigan with arguably their worst team easily since the COVID year. But before that, probably since before Harbaugh got there, their worst team. No quarterback, can't throw the ball forward. Missing their top 2 guys in the secondary. And they just went into the horseshoe and absolutely punked the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, no Colston Loveland either. Their best receiver, their tight end. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't really even know where to begin other than the fact of I don't know that in my lifetime, and I'm not trying to be prisoner of the moment, that I've seen a more as far as huge game like that with so much riding on it with fan bases involved and the programs and just everything that Ohio State, think about this. Ohio State invested rumors somewhere between $13 to $20 million. I know that's a big difference, 13 to 20, but that's just, we don't know what the exact number is, but somewhere between $13 to $20 million in this roster. And it had everything to do with the fact that they were tired of losing to Michigan, and Michigan went and won the national championship, and the Buckeyes said, that stops now.
They did it with a physical team, and Ohio State wanted to be physical.
Yes. Ohio State has built this team to try to combat and make sure that they don't lose to Michigan anymore. And like you said, man, the worst Michigan team that we have seen in years since the COVID year went into Buckeye land and just punked them again. And do people start considering, seriously, let's just jump right into it. If Ohio State loses the first game in this college football playoff, I don't know, his record is 1,000,001 against other teams in the Big Ten. I know all that. Do you think a single Ohio State person gives a rat's ass about that today?
No, I don't. No. I don't think they want. I don't think they want him back, regardless of what he does in the playoffs. I mean, win a national championship, sure, but yeah, I mean, I think right now, obviously, prisoner of the moment. They're done. They're done with him.
I don't know how you come back from this.
It's John Cooper 2.0, where he got all the guys. He got Eddie George. He got David Boston. He got all these guys to come in. I mean, it's Ohio State, right? They have the number 1 all-time winning percentage in college football, so they're always going to win games. It doesn't matter who the coach is.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to a job like Ohio State, you got to win the big ones.
Yep.
And that's what he's failed to do, obviously.
Yep.
And that's what John Cooper failed to do.
It's like, thank God for Penn State if you're Ohio State. I mean, thank God for Penn State because that's all they really beat.
Yeah.
They lose to everybody. They lose to all the other really good teams. And, I mean, again, lost to Oregon earlier this year. Lose this one again, but, none of them obviously as big as this one. I'm not one of those that just immediately let's fire somebody or whatever. That's not how I am. That's not how you are either. But I'm to the point, man, where he needs to win the national championship. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like you just said it. You just said it. Like, this is Ohio State. Was that 4 in a row for Michigan?
Yep.
4 in a row. And you have the most talented roster in college football. Going into this season, everybody talked about it's do or die for Ryan Day. And you're sitting here with 2 losses now. And let's be real, it was a 3-game season.
It was the way they lost too yesterday. Just the defense played really well because, I mean, Michigan can't do anything on offense. And the offensive game plan, whether or not he had any say in that or not, it falls on either him or Chip Kelly. But
I think it's both.
Just the fact that they just kept trying to run right into the strength of Michigan's defense.
Yep.
When at the beginning of the episode, I just said Michigan didn't have their 2 top DBs in there. Will Johnson was not playing. He hasn't played all year because he's sitting out. And you've got studs all around. But again, they've got a quarterback who, if you've heard this show before, I have not been high on Will Howard. Yeah, he's accurate, cool against whoever they play in the Big Ten. But again, he played well at that Oregon game. But when the moment got tough and they got down, yeah, we saw the last play of the Oregon game. Not a good play from him. Interception inside your own 10 yesterday. Might have been 2. He threw 2 picks like that.
He threw 2 picks like that.
And just some stupid decisions. Again, just trying to run the ball right up the middle. I think they had, 26 carries for 73 yards or something like that. And it was just, I know you got stud running backs back there, but shoot, get them in space. They did it in the first quarter a little bit and got Quinshon Judkins to the outside. But it was just, if I was an Ohio State fan, at the game, watching the game, whatever, I would be pissed right now.
Remember after the Nebraska game when I gave that take about how you can go find it on our socials right now about how Ohio State just is trying to be Michigan.
Yeah.
They're trying to play bully ball and they're trying to play football in a phone booth and just run power formations and run between the tackles and try to play bully ball. And they're not Michigan. Yeah, that's what they tried to do against Michigan. And instead of just turning those receivers loose, like you said, they didn't have Will Johnson playing in the game. I think that the most evident, like, if I could just pick a series and a play that describes Ryan Day and describes this rivalry right now, somebody put this out. I would love to give credit to who did it, but I honestly forgot. I saw actually somebody else say this, and I was thinking this yesterday. My dad and I were talking about it. Ohio State had it deep in Michigan territory and decided to basically just run up the middle 3 times. And even on 3rd down and not a running down, they still just ran up the middle for no gain and to kick a field goal. And they missed the chip shot field goal. Point being is they were scared to death to try to throw the ball with those freak receivers with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka. They would not turn it loose and throw the football. They just said, we're just going to run up the middle 3 times and kick a field goal here and just be super safe and conservative and scared to death and piss down our leg. And that's what they did. And that right there was one of the things that I think that's just evident of this rivalry right now. I have to admit, did you think that Michigan had any chance?
No.
To win this
game? I asked you on last week's episode, and you said 5% chance they could win.
5%. And what I said is that I know that Michigan can stop the run. But I thought Ohio State wasn't going to try to be, again, I think they had 33 pass attempts and 26 rush attempts. It should have been more lopsided than that. It's amazing, man. Like, Michigan has just broke this team. They have. They are trying to be something they're not. They continue to do that. They were stubborn and tried to do it yesterday, and it played into Michigan's hand. Michigan was begging them to run the football up the middle against those monster D tackles for Michigan who are going to be playing on Sundays next year. And they just kept doing it, man.
Yeah.
Just kept doing it. And you're right, Will Howard, awful game, man. Just terrible, terrible game. Again, I just don't think that you can. I know there's going to be every single podcast, every single talk show, and everybody's going to be blasting them, and rightfully so. And I debated whether or not to try to maybe be one of those guys that was going to try to see a little bit more of maybe a little gray area here, give them a little bit more gray. They just can't be, man. They just can't be.
Yeah.
So I do think they need to win the national championship at this point. We said it going into the year, national championship or bust. I think if they beat Michigan yesterday, that people would have given a little more grace if they go to the national championship or go to the semis and get upset or whatever. People would have been happy, but you could forgive that a little more. But now, I mean, they're not going to fire him. I'll be shocked if they did.
Yeah.
I really would.
His buyout's like $37 million.
Yeah,
like
I mean, they're not going to do it, man. But this is just something that they have to win the national championship at this point for that to be even remotely somewhat like back in the good graces of former players, fan base, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And I know we all want to blame Ron Day for all of this, and that's fine. I know coaches get all the blame, but at some point too, this roster full of just super freak, talented freaks and all these guys that are making all these millions of dollars to come to the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes, as Gus Johnson would say.
We're going to talk about Gus Johnson here.
Oh, don't worry. Yeah, I was going to say, who's more sad today, Ron Day or Gus Johnson? Yeah, I mean, and they're the ones on the field playing in this game against Michigan. And they didn't get it done. We can blame Ron Day, that's fine. But they didn't get it done. And at some point, they need to be held accountable significantly just as much for this as well. That's a joke, man, that you can't do better than that.
Yeah.
Against this bunch.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to say about good old Gus and his antics in that game yesterday?
Yeah, post-game, I'll speak from the heart here. Gus Johnson used to be one of the best announcers, March Madness, all this stuff.
Yeah.
He's done just countless Ohio State games in the past couple of years, and you would have never known he was a Howard alum. You would have thought he went to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And he is just, I mean, all over the Buckeyes, and it's getting gross, and everyone can see it. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
The world famous Ohio State Buckeyes, all that stuff. Again, at the end of the game, his line, after they stopped him on 4th down and they were going to get the win, was Michigan didn't cheat this time. Like that was his line for Michigan getting their biggest win of the year. Like I've seen guys who do NBC Notre Dame football games who are less biased towards Notre Dame than Gus Johnson is towards Ohio State.
Greg McElroy played quarterback at Alabama, and you'd honestly never know it when he's calling games.
Yeah. And, and then obviously, everything went on after the game at midfield, and you would have thought that the Michigan football team was trying to like set the horseshoe on fire the way Gus Johnson was talking.
They were pulling women and kids out of the crowd.
Yeah. But let's touch on it, man. Flag planting, spear planting, all that stuff. Where do you stand on it?
Honestly, dude, I know a lot of people are saying that these teams that were like, for example, Ohio State, they put up way more fight after the game than they did during the game. That's fine. Like everybody can say that, and I don't disagree with it. Like you should say that, and you open yourself up to people saying that about you. But I have to admit, man, your bitter arch rivals, they're trying to plant the flag on your field at the 50-yard line. I'm perfectly okay with you saying, all right, let's fight. I'm good with that. I really am. Like, yeah, but if you want to say, for example, if I'm on Ohio State and I'm Jack Sawyer, he's the one that ripped the flag up and all that, if everybody after the game wants to make fun of me for losing to Michigan, we should have showed more fight during the game. All of that is true, but it can also be true at the same time. You're not going to do that on my field as my bitter rival. You're not.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you do it. We'll fight. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I'm actually great with it. If somebody wants to try to plant the flag, my bitter rival on my midfield, at my home on my home place. And if you want to also say we probably should have beat them instead.
That's what I was
Yes,
going to say. Yeah.
I agree. You
Yeah.
should have.
Yeah.
But also, you ain't planting that flag, no matter if I didn't beat you or not. It's not
Yeah.
happening.
If you
I'm
don't
not
want
going
the
to do it.
flag
So I'm
planted,
good with it. I'm good with
then
it.
if you don't want the flag planted, then don't lose.
I
What
agree.
happened in Florida State, where Billy Napier looked like he tried to, go shake Mike Norvell's hands and kind of cool things down. And then Mike Norvell was the guy who went over and took the flag out of the guy's hands and threw it. And it's like, it looked like Napier was trying to keep cooler heads about it.
Yeah, I'm going to refrain from using the language I'd like to use in regards to Mike Norvell in that situation. But that's fine, man. You're the biggest laughing stock of college football this year.
Yeah.
100%. The biggest laughing stock in all of college football this year is Florida State, including Ohio State, what they just did against Michigan.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Act that way. Napier handled himself really well.
Yeah. And that was the most fight that Florida State had shown all year, for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
After the final whistle, the final game of the season. So,
let me
NC
ask
State,
you
North Carolina. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you this question. Obviously we know how the world would have reacted afterwards, but I wonder how many people would actually agree with me on this. I have no idea what Mike Norvell was saying, but if Norvell was saying what we probably would imagine he's saying to Napier when he was yelling and screaming and all the hand motions and demonstrative hand motions, if he was yelling, screaming profanity and saying some terrible things in Napier's face like that, do you think it warranted if Napier just go off and just give him a fist right upside his freaking nose? Like, how awesome would that have been, bro?
That would have been great. Probably would have been a great look for Billy Napier, but
I mean, but still, like, grown man sitting there yelling in my face like that. Like when
if I was Napier, I probably would have taken the flag myself and planted it right in front of Norvell's face.
Yeah. Like I personally, I think that'd have been beyond warranted. I know people probably disagree.
The thing, all these teams are just. I mean, again, we got to remember these are college students. Like they're idiots. Like they're gonna make stupid decisions, whether or not you agree it's a stupid decision or not. But dude, I guarantee stuff has been done when Florida State has went to Florida and beat them. I guarantee when Ohio State was killing Michigan for all those years, 10 in a row or whatever it was, I guarantee stuff was being done. So, again, it's the old adage. If you're going to dish it out, you got to be able to take it. And you just got punked on your home field as a 20-point favorite, as an underdog, as a 3-point favorite. Doesn't matter. You lost on your home field. And especially for teams like Michigan who have heard it all year, what Ohio State's going to do to them. They've heard it for 4 years that they were going to get, 100 hung on them. And that obviously hasn't happened. And I don't think they've got to 100 those 4 games combined. And then, Florida, they've lost a couple in a row to Florida State. So, we're going to talk a little bit more about a little later about coaches, whining about stuff because it seems like it's just getting worse and worse. And I don't know if it's just the day and age of players entitled, so coaches feel they're entitled. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's touch on the Palmetto Bowl. Noon game again. It was awesome. Clemson controlled the game on the scoreboard throughout for 59 minutes. They started off up with a 7-0 lead and then it eventually got to 14-10. Big difference is that South Carolina had Lenora Sellers and Clemson didn't. And some of the plays that dude made, I mean, just getting out of so many sacks, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah, Clemson is going to be kicking themselves with the deal of they look like they've never seen a dual threat quarterback before.
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about just like taking off running for 8 to 10 yards, getting a first down. Like that touchdown run they had at the end was very indicative of like everything that had happened throughout that game. Getting out of sacks and then running for like 30, 40 yards. Just remarkable. And South Carolina had 3 possessions. South Carolina had 3 turnovers. All 3 of them were in Clemson territory.
Mm-hmm.
So they were just snake bit the whole game there with that. And, it really was just Lenora Sellers' legs. Clemson's defensive line dominated South Carolina's offensive line in pass blocking. Every time South Carolina tried to drop back to pass, Clemson was all over them.
Yeah.
South Carolina ran the ball fine. I mean, Rocket Sanders, okay, running the ball. He had a little about 3.5 yards a carry. They had another guy that averaged almost 7 yards a carry. But then Lenora Sellers had 16 carries for 166 yards and averaged almost 11 yards a carry. And that includes some of the sacks that he took. So if you take away some of the sack yards, it's probably even more than that. But I mean, man, Clemson had everything in front of them. We'll get to more here in a second, but they had
Yeah.
everything in front of them there. Their rival on their home field, like you said, was leading the entire ball game, had the lead at the end of the game, and they allowed South Carolina to, in their last two possessions, to kick a field goal and then score a touchdown. So they allowed South Carolina to score 10 points on the final two possessions on your home field when you had a chance to put them away.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it. But another thing, like tip of the cap to Shane Beamer and this South Carolina team, man. They're another one that had 9 wins. I think their win total at the beginning of the year was like 5.5. And they outperformed their win total like they did. Just an incredible year with a redshirt freshman quarterback. I mean, receiver-wise, I mean, overall, I mean, South Carolina's got talent, obviously, but they have built up a lot of that talent and helped that talent progress. Another thing was Clemson did probably the best job I think I've seen anyone do all year long against Kennard and Stewart. Like at one point during that game, I said, are they even playing?
Right.
Like Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart, two of the best pass rushers in all of college football, and one of the best defensive lines and tackles for a loss and sacks and everything else that South Carolina normally has. I mean, I think, let's see, dude, I'm looking at it now. They had 3 tackles for a loss the entire game. They had 1 sack in the game. South Carolina did.
Yeah.
Nobody has done as good of a job against that bunch as they did. So Clemson did the things that they needed to do to win the game, but still only scored 14 points. So, I mean, against the 2 best teams that Clemson has played this year, they scored a total of 17 points.
Yeah.
That's it.
Clemson, once again, they proved they did not belong in the at-large conversation. They couldn't win a game as a favorite on their home field against their rival. South Carolina now plays the waiting game. They'll pretty much know their fate this coming Tuesday, just where they're slotted. And we'll get to the playoff talk here in a second. But they pretty much, they've done all they could do as far as talent-wise with their schedule and everything. And obviously with battling through injuries during some games and everything, they've done all they could do. But ultimately, we think it might just be, they may come up just a little too short. But we'll have to see on Tuesday night. Lone Star Showdown. Texas went into Texas A&M College Station for the first time in 13 years, and that atmosphere was what we expected it to be. And it was pretty evident after A&M got all the way down inside the red zone on that first drive, and they got stuffed. And actually, it's probably evident more than that, before that, Texas is going to not really have any issues in this game. I looked at Quinn Ewers on the sideline before the game as the crowd was going, and he was just kind of like, bobbing his head along, like to whatever song they were playing. Like, he was cool, calm, and collected. He's a Texas boy. Like, this was a big game for him. Herbie said it at the end of the game. Like, he exaggerated, sarcastically. Ewers has just been stressed out all night. Like, you looked at him, he was just like, even keel all the time.
Yeah, he did look very chill, relaxed.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, he did not look like anything bothered him the whole game. Like, even when big plays would happen, he was the same. He was
some of those turnovers that they had down in the. This game, it was fortunate for A&M that it was as close as it was.
Yeah.
There was a pick six. There was another fumble from Ewers down inside the red zone. Texas defense didn't allow a single point all night long.
248 total yards for A&M. That is unbelievable at high level Power 4 football.
Yeah.
That you can hold a team to 248 total yards.
Yeah, and Marcel Reed showed his youth. He showed his inexperience. The moment seemed, too big for him.
Yeah.
And man, they were down 17. They were down 17-7. They got down inside the 5 again.
Yeah.
And just some of the dumbest play calls in the world from Colin Klein. Like, just running straight in. I just don't understand what these offensive coordinators are doing sometimes. Like, what are you guys trying to prove? You've got a mobile quarterback, and you've got 4 downs, and you don't get him in space at least one of those plays.
Not one.
I would venture to say at least 2 of those plays. You don't get him in space. Like, that is coaching malpractice right there. For
100%.
them to do that And then for Elko to call a timeout and then go for it anyways and run straight up the middle and get absolutely stuffed, you don't have a different play than that. Like, you don't have, again, maybe Le'Veon Moss, when he's in the game, he gets a better, push. You got Amari Daniels. The dude's 185 pounds, right? Like, he's not going to do anything against that Texas defensive front.
He averaged 1.6 yards per carry throughout the game, and you just thought we're going to run up the middle with him multiple times. I'm with you, man. Like, I've been talking about this for a while now, that it's like these offensive coordinators who, let's be real, like, they want to be like innovative by nature,
man.
Normally,
yeah, until they get inside the 10.
But then they get in the red zone, and it's like they have no idea what to do. And I don't know if the moment's too big. I don't know if they're scared that I don't know, man. I really don't know the answer, but whatever, doesn't matter. The fact that A&M decided to just try to run into the teeth of, think about the logic of it too, man. You got all these just massive humans that are packed in tightly into this little small space, and you just try to run right into that, directly into it.
And it hasn't worked all night. It didn't work on the first drive, and it didn't work on the last drive.
No. It makes zero sense. I agree. With the dual threat quarterback like Marcel Reed, the fact that you don't have anything called to get him out in space and have some sort of a run-pass option type deal. And let's go even further with it. In the day and age of this tush-push that the Philadelphia Eagles started in the NFL, where a lot of teams run it, the fact that that's not something that every single football team on the planet, at every level, starting at the high school level, that needs to be something that's part of your practice on a weekly basis.
And if you don't think your quarterback's big enough, put a tight end under there.
Yeah, that has to be something that you do. That makes no sense to me. And I saw a lot of people tweeting about it last night. I saw Jake Crane, a bunch of people, like a QB sneak's not part of your playbook.
Yeah.
And it's really not. There's a lot of teams that's the case. But the fact that you don't do that at all in today's age of college football and the NFL and everything else, that's amazing to me. It really is. But on the flip side of that, I want to make sure I say this. There was no atmosphere in college football that was more hostile than what Texas went into last night, going into that game. It was everything that everybody thought it would be. And Texas just looked at it and smiled and laughed. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
That was as old school, vintage SEC of a performance as you could get. Texas took their defense and
from
just
two Big 12
owned
teams.
The line of scrimmage. Yeah. And just owned the line of scrimmage and punked them. And then they hand the ball off left and hand the ball off right to Wisner, who had 33 carries for 186 yards. Texas averaged almost 6 yards a carry in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, dude, they just lined up and said, here we come, do something about it, and punked them.
Yeah.
Punked them in College Station.
Yep.
That's another one. Did you got 13 years, you're in the SEC, you're just despise the fact that Texas joins. You have the opportunity to keep them out of the SEC championship game. You have them home at night in that atmosphere, and you put that type of a stinker out there. Like you said, they shouldn't have scored a point on offense. I mean, they didn't. Sorry, they didn't. They didn't score a point. They didn't score a point on offense. And you're lucky Texas didn't win that game 30-something to nothing. I'm not going to take away from the fact that it still was a great year for Elko in year one. Yeah, it was.
Future's looking up.
It is. But that's bad. That's bad.
Turns out only the best teams can go into College Station at night and win games.
There it is. There it is.
By 10 each. So, no, I mean, honestly, we didn't expect that. So major props to Texas. I know they threw up a stinker, a month and a half ago against Georgia, which they get to try to atone for that this coming Saturday in the SEC championship game.
I'm almost going to say that they look like the most complete team in college football. I know that Oregon also looks great and all that. Yeah. I'm not saying Oregon's not, but Texas, as great as their defense has looked almost all year, literally almost the entire season long. And
even in that Georgia game, they Georgia's offense didn't do anything.
No, Texas's defense was nasty against Georgia too. It just didn't seem like it as much from how dominant Georgia's defense was against Texas. I still, Greg McElroy says this all the time, and I agree with him. I still am like, I leave Texas games with like more to be desired and what I want to see from their offense. But it doesn't matter if they can run the rock, like that. And that was a really good Texas A&M defensive front that they ran all over that like that.
And I know that Ewers was a little hobbled with the ankle, so I loved the fact that they brought in Arch for a couple, plays and kind of. I mean, that first drive, that 4th and 2 design play. How did you not know Manning was going to keep the ball? That's why they brought him in.
Yeah.
And he just ran right around the edge and bullied his way in for a touchdown. And it was a solid win by Texas. That pretty much locks them into a playoff spot.
They're locked in. They're locked in.
Yeah. So it's it'll be a good one. I can't wait to talk about the SEC championship later on this week.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'll let you talk a little bit about the Iron Bowl and how Alabama came out and righted the ship against a Auburn team that tried to, they have 65, 70 pass attempts from Peyton Thorne.
Good Lord, dude. I mean, for all the great recruiting that Hugh Freeze is doing, which he is, at some point, man, there's got to be something needs to be talked about, like at a very high level there in regards to game planning on offense and play calling and how they're going about things. Watching the Oklahoma-Alabama game and seeing a former walk-on tailback run all over him and Jackson Arnold run all over him. And then you've got Jarquez Hunter, who is one of the 2 best backs in the SEC, with Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. Peyton Thorne, who is just as much dual threat ability, if not more, than Jackson Arnold. You already run an RPO type offense anyway, where the quarterback does run, running back does run, whatever, and you throw for more than 40 times. That was what you decided to do, was throw for more than 40 times.
Yeah.
That's just inexcusable.
Yeah.
What it is. There's just another way around it. That's a piss poor game plan and play calling by Hugh Freeze in that game.
Yeah. Honeymoon's over for Hugh.
Oh, it is.
I mean, I know they're not getting, he's not on the hot seat or anything like that, but honeymoon's over. You're getting the recruits. Peyton Thorne's not coming back.
Time to win next year.
Time to win.
Yep.
Time to, play on the field needs to improve. It needs to show market improvement.
Yep.
You get Alabama at home next year. Like, it's got to be a different story next year.
It's got to be wins. It's got to be wins in the win column. There is no more of the, hey, our offensive efficiency numbers and our defensive efficiency numbers look really good. We're just turning the ball over too much. Well, let's throw that out. Alabama had 4 turnovers in this game, and you still only scored 14 points.
Yeah.
Like the other team gave you 4 gifts, gave you 4 extra possessions, and you still only scored 14 points. And one of those was honestly luck at the towards the end of the game as well. But on the flip side of it, I was happy to see Alabama come out and actually play with significant amounts of intensity. And it was like, who gives a rat's ass about the playoff or where we stand or anything like that? At the end of the day, this is the friggin' Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
And let's go beat our bitter rival. That's all that matters here tonight. Let's go out against our bitter rival who has ran their mouths all week long. Couldn't believe how much Auburn was running their mouth all week long. And again,
nothing to lose.
And, the ones that were running their mouths, let's just call it what it is. The ones that were running their mouths were nowhere to be found the entire football game. I don't even know if they played, to be real. Actually, I do know. DeMarcus Riddick, the outside linebacker that said that Jalen Milroe is not fast and he would not get outside. He was the one that was
he got burnt.
Yeah, he was the one that was chasing Milroe on the touchdown that got burnt by Milroe on that. But Alabama took care of business against their bitter rival. And as far as Auburn's concerned, I think you could ask anybody that is close with that Auburn program, even going into that game, the number one thing that all of them care about, and really the only thing that any of them care about in regards to football right now, and Auburn football, is this recruiting class that they've got coming in and how young this team was this year for Auburn. And so I agree 100% with you, Tyler. There is no more, well, wait till next year or wait till that. No. Got to win games starting literally this coming up year. You're out of excuses now.
Yep. All right, time for a little look ahead. to college football playoff rankings coming out on Tuesday night, which we will once again be live for. Oregon's going to stay at the top. Texas is going to be up there. Penn State's going to be up there.
Notre Dame's going to be up there.
Notre Dame's going to be up there. So it's
I think those 4 will be in the top 5. We can pretty much guarantee that, right? As far as what the committee's going to have.
Yep.
Yes.
And then obviously Georgia, Tennessee. Okay, so here let's do this. Oregon, they've locked up a spot.
Yep.
Texas locked up a spot.
Yep.
Notre Dame.
Yep.
Penn State.
Yep.
So that's 4.
Yep.
Georgia.
Yep. Ohio State.
5. Ohio State.
Yep.
6. Tennessee is 7.
Yep. I think Indiana's in.
Indiana 8.
And that might be it as far as
so that's your Indiana 8. And then you got ACC champion will be 9.
Yep.
Big 12 champion will be 10.
Yep.
And G5 champion will be 11.
Yep.
So there are some people out there who seem to think that SMU is in either way. So the potential, and that's up for debate, but the potential bid stealer here would be Clemson.
Absolutely. There again.
And so if you're a fan of Alabama, Ole Miss, South Carolina, whether or not you believe Miami, whether or not you believe those teams still have a chance to get in, you are the biggest SMU fan in the world.
Yep.
This Saturday night.
Yep.
To help your chances out. So it's going to be interesting to look forward to that. As we're recording here at 2:00 Eastern on a Sunday afternoon, AP poll did just drop. As expected, it's Oregon, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Georgia in the top 5. Tennessee's number 6. Ohio State drops down from number 2 all the way to number 7 in the AP poll. Everyone moves up 1 spot for SMU, Indiana, and Boise State. They're 8, 9, and 10. Alabama goes up 2 to 11. Arizona State goes up 2 to 12. South Carolina jumps Ole Miss and Miami. They go up from 16 to 13. So now they are in front of Ole Miss. Miami drops down to 14. So they dropped 6 spots after losing on the road to Syracuse.
Yep.
Iowa State, BYU. So Clemson drops 6 spots. You got UNLV, Colorado, all those teams still in there. Memphis sneaks in at number 25. Syracuse is now in there at number 23 to give Miami a hashtag good loss.
Hilarious that Army 24, bro.
Yeah.
Good for the troops, though, man. Good for the troops.
Yeah. I mean, that was I gave out Army earlier in the week, and I held off because I just didn't have a good feeling about it, and I'm glad I did. And I didn't put it out on Twitter, so if you listened to the episode and you bet it then, I'm sorry. But so you're going to have, number 12 versus number 16 in the Big 12. You're going to have basically top 16 matchups in all of the Power 4 conference championships.
You have a top 19 matchup in the Mountain West Championship.
Yeah. So as of right now, it looks like the winner of the Mountain West is going to get the G5.
Yes.
So
100%.
Yep. So as far as our rankings, we are actually in agreement with the AP at 1 and 2. We got Oregon and Texas at 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
We got Notre Dame at number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And they went on the road yesterday, took care of business against USC, thanks to a couple pick sixes. I didn't really have a shootout on the bingo card for LA. But I will say, Notre Dame, if they get into the playoff, which they have a really good shot of getting the 5 seed now, which would be a really favorable path for anybody who we talked about, getting that 5 seed.
Yeah.
But if they get against the team who does have a good passing attack because of the injuries and everything they've suffered, and because of the just insane amount of man coverage that Al Golden plays, they will be tested. And they were tested yesterday multiple times. Mayava just kept throwing back shoulder fades, and Christian Gray, was kind of getting, hit from all angles all game, had a couple pass interference penalties, everything. Made up for it with the pick 6 at the end of the game to put them up by 14. Xavier Watts, Lombardi winner last year, Nagurski winner, all that stuff. Pick 6 as well, both of them 100 yards, which is kind of crazy to have that back-to-back like that.
You know what's wild, man? That some people would probably scoff at that what I'm about to say. a lot of these teams that are ranked in the top, like whatever, in college football, like, dude, a Lincoln Riley USC passing attack with some of the dudes they've got on the perimeter is better than a lot. I mean, that is a test for your defense. It is. USC's issues aren't weapons on the perimeter and playing on offense. That's not their problem right now. Their problem is physicality and line of scrimmage play and defense. That's their issue. So, yeah, like that was definitely a test for Notre Dame, but I do not disagree with you on that. Like Notre Dame, I think, wants you to try to line up and play grown man football against them. They are great with doing that.
Yeah.
And they are better than most teams at doing just that. Is Jeremiah Love, any word on him?
Yeah, he went out with a knee injury. I mean, they've got 3 weeks to prepare here, so hopefully he'll be good for that. But if Oregon beats Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, I think Notre Dame will be the 5 seed.
I agree.
Penn State happens to go in and upset Oregon. Oregon's going to be the 5 seed, and Notre Dame's going to be the 6.
Let me ask you this: if Georgia beats Texas and Penn State beats Oregon, who's the one seed in the playoffs?
If Georgia beats Texas and Penn State beats Oregon, it'll be Penn State, which is just the most insane.
I don't think it will.
I think it will.
You think it will?
Yeah, I mean, they would have a win over the only undefeated team left in the country, 12-0 Oregon. Like,
I'd be interested to see what they did with Georgia.
Yeah,
in that
I'm more
scenario.
interested. I'm more interested if Georgia were to win and Oregon were to win. Like the argument between Notre Dame and Texas for the 5 seed would be interesting.
Yeah,
in my mind.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Depending on how much you're going to punish a team for losing a championship game, like we've been talking about. So
that's a good point.
Anyways, Notre Dame we've got at 3. This is where we're going to hash out some stuff here. I had Ohio State 4.
Mm-hmm.
You had Georgia at 4.
Mm-hmm.
Say your piece.
But Georgia, the number 1 strength of schedule in the country.
Number 3 now. Sorry, number 3. Can't use that anymore. Number 3.
Okay, number 3. What's Ohio State's?
I don't know, probably 35 or something.
Okay, still significantly better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean Georgia with double digit wins against 2 teams that are going to be in this committee's top 7, 8 double-digit wins over Texas, the number 2 ranked team in the country. We agree they're going to be ranked number 2, the number 2 in ours, and a double-digit win over Tennessee. And we'll get to Tennessee here in a second where we've got them in ours. But Tennessee is going to be in the top 8.
Yeah.
Probably top 7. And they beat both of those teams by double digits.
Mm-hmm.
And their losses are on the road at Alabama and at Ole Miss, 2 teams in the top 15. I do agree with you. 100%. You have been on this all year long, and
you're gonna 8 Mile me here. You're gonna use my argument, so I can't use it.
Yeah, exactly. I am. Georgia has not looked impressive week in and week out. As a matter of fact, they've looked unimpressive.
It's incredible that they're 10-2. Like,
I agree.
That's all Kirby Smart.
But in this year, man, in this year of college football, with all these teams losing games, they've still won a lot of those games. Should they have won against Georgia Tech? Probably not, but they did. They still did have that fourth quarter and come back and win that game against an inferior opponent. A lot of these teams aren't winning those games. So my reasoning for having, Ohio State just literally played a 5-loss team that doesn't even have an offense and lost.
Mm-hmm.
They did. Ohio State's got the best, for whatever it's worth, they've got the best loss in the country.
Yeah.
The 1-point loss at Oregon. I think you and I both agree, we've talked about this before, going on the road and losing at Oregon, the number 1 team in the country, by 1 point, that's more impressive than Ohio State beating up on Purdue or Northwestern or anything like that.
Yeah.
That's where, this is another conversation for another day, that's why that the majority of college football fans, that all they can look at is a W in the W column and an L in the loss column, and that's it. That's just all they look at. Again, more impressive that Ohio State went on the road at Oregon and went toe-to-toe with Oregon and only lost by 1 point than it is that they beat the brakes off on Northwestern. That's more impressive what they did against Oregon. So the reason I've got Georgia there is because of strength of schedule, strength of record. I don't know what the difference is in strength of record between Ohio State and Georgia. All I did is it's very close to one another. and the fact that Georgia doesn't have any bad losses, Ohio State does, and Georgia's got 2 better wins.
It's a solid argument, sir.
Okay.
My argument is basically that Georgia looks like crap.
And
Like you said.
I'm not arguing against you on that.
And again, Ohio State, we all saw them yesterday. Even just total body work, they've looked like the better team all year long.
But hang on. Let me ask you this. We say that. I mean, dude, they look like booty cheeks against Nebraska at home.
They do look, yeah.
They look like booty cheeks at home against Michigan.
Yeah.
Now, they beat up on Northwestern. They beat up on whoever. They honestly, their most impressive thing that they've done probably is how just bad that they made. I know some people are going to be like, Indiana's not any good. They ain't played nobody. Me and you think Indiana's a good football team. If you don't think they are, whatever.
Yeah.
How bad they made Indiana look in that game is the most impressive thing they've done all year, in my opinion. Which is, that's good.
To use that argument, I mean, you're talking, they beat up on Northwestern. They beat up on Iowa. They beat, yeah. But Georgia has not done that to anybody. They didn't do that to Kentucky.
Mm-mm.
They didn't do that to Mississippi State.
Mm-mm.
The biggest win was against Auburn in conference, right?
Yeah,
like margin of victory, like 18 points.
That was a decent game the majority of the game.
Exactly. So it's just, again, we're splitting hairs. Both these teams are going to make the playoffs, but just a difference of opinion.
I had Georgia at 4, right? And you had Ohio State at 4.
Yep. Yep. So we'll figure that out later. We'll figure out what to put on the graphic.
But right now, what we've got currently on the rundown is it's either going to be Ohio State or Georgia.
Yeah.
4 and 5. Right.
Yeah, we'll argue about it for another 24 hours and see what we do.
Okay.
Number 6, Tennessee, really good win on the road at Vandy after starting off at a 14-0 hole. Opening kickoff return for Vandy, then a fumble, and then a touchdown. 5 minutes into the game, it was 14-0. If you're going to fall in a 14-point hole, no better time to do it than first 5 minutes of the game. Tennessee came out, dominated the rest of the game after that, much to my chagrin because I had Vandy plus 11. They couldn't get that 2-point conversion there at the end of the game for the push. So that was a tough beat.
By the way, this was one of those that the score was not indicative of at all of how this game went. This was a beatdown. Tennessee had 538 yards and held Vandy to 213 yards. Remember what I said a minute ago about what holding a team, what Texas did to Texas A&M, holding a team to 248 total yards. They held Vandy to 213 yards. Tennessee's defense did. Tennessee still scored 36 points and won this game by double digits with 13 penalties for 102 yards and 2 turnovers. Still won the game by that much. And the last thing I want to say on this game, for all the smack that has been talked all year long about how Nico Iamaleava has not looked good at all this year, he played really well in this game. Hit some shots, hit some balls, hit some deep balls down the field. And if Tennessee, going into this playoff, if they can hit those downfield shots, they got a chance to win it all.
Yeah.
They can, with how good this defense really is and how good their running game is. You know as well as I do, man, it happened against Alabama. This Josh Heupel offense, they take a lot of shots. And there are multiple times in the game where their receivers, because of just how they space the field out, these receivers will be open on a couple of big-time plays. It's just, can Nico hit them or not? And he did in this game. He had multiple long touchdown passes in this game. If they can do that, they can. They can go a long way in this playoff.
Yeah, problem for them is they're probably going to be starting off on the road that first game. So
yeah, probably. Like I'm looking. Like I was thinking, there's possibility they could get the 8 seed, but you think they'll be 9 or 10?
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, honestly, the 8. Georgia's got the head-to-head, right? So the 8 and 9 would be, if Ohio State fell that far, it would be between them and Ohio State. Yeah.
So they're going to probably be by the way, what a great matchup. That'd be Buckeyes and Tennessee right out of the gate.
Yeah, right in Columbus.
Buckeyes aren't running on that defense either. No.
So we got another fight on our hands. I had Indiana at 7, and you had Penn State at 7.
Split. This, honestly, man, this is splitting hair. This is as far as I'm going to go with it. For me, this had everything to do with how they looked against both of them. They only played one really good team. Both teams only played one really good team. And I think Penn State looked better against that really good team than Indiana did. And
Well,
that's really it.
They both played Purdue. I think Indiana just scored again, actually, on Purdue.
Good Lord, bro. You live in that state and you're a Hoosier Hoops fan. Amazing what Siggs in Indiana. Siggs coming out there on the basketball court last year, that famous deal that you've seen all over ESPN by now. Purdue sucks, but so does Michigan and Ohio State.
He got 2 out of 3 first year.
66-0, bro.
Yeah. And the way IU Hoops has looked, it's not good for Mike Woodson. Then we'll just leave it at that. But it's we are splitting hairs here. The box score was one of the saddest box scores I've seen at a bucket game. Indiana had 66 points. Purdue had 67 total yards.
That's unbelievable, bro.
5 first downs to 9 touchdowns.
You sent me the box score. I forgot. 67 total.
5 first downs for Purdue, 9 touchdowns for Indiana. 548 yards or 38, whatever it was, to 67. Like,
is this the biggest? This may be the biggest discrepancy in score and box score of any power level rivalry that we've seen.
It's the second for the bucket game back in 1892. Purdue took it to Indiana 68-0, but 66-0. I mean, again, Purdue lost to Notre Dame earlier this year, 66-7. So they've taken it on the chin against, I think they played five CFP teams this year, which is just insane. But Penn State, let's talk about that. And really what I want to talk about is your thoughts on Mike Locksley and James Franklin.
For real, Mike Locksley, dude, that is like little brother. Again, I'm not going to use the word. I'm going to say wussy. That's wussy stuff from Mike Locksley. You and I both subscribe to the fact if you don't want another team to score, then stop them. But on top of that, couldn't agree more, man, and I don't agree with a lot with what James Franklin has to say.
Yeah.
But couldn't agree more with what he had to say after that game in regards to, I've got my 3s and 4s in the game. My job in that situation, if I'm the coach, is to put my backups and put my 3s and 4s in. But I agree 1,000%. Those kids go all year long practicing their butts off. They go through workouts in the summer too. They go through all the stuff that those first teamers go through. When those 3rd and 4th teamers get in the game, including the 2nd teamers, man, they should be allowed to play football. Go play just like you normally would play. I don't care if it's 70-0. That 3rd team quarterback deserves the right to go in and run the offense. And the receivers reserve the right to go try to run routes and catch passes, whatever. And the fact that Maryland still had their first team in, like James Franklin said, and they were going cover 0 and sending the house and blitzing.
Yeah.
And then Locksley after the game is going to say that's BS and sit up there and cry in his post-game press conference on top of getting his ass kicked. Again. Yeah. By Penn State. I mean, Penn State has destroyed them year after year after year. Dude, that is weak stuff. I would have had a lot more respect for Locksley if after the game, if he would have seriously said, he's like, look, I hate getting beat that bad, whatever, but if we don't want them throwing the football at the end of the game with our 3s and 4s, maybe we should just stop them.
Yeah. Or just play prevent defense, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, just stop them. I mean, but again, if you can't.
Yeah.
But like I told you, you and I talked about it on the phone last night. If Penn State still had Drew Aller in the game and Katron Allen and Nick Singleton and all their starting receivers, and they're sitting there, Tyler Warren, and they're taking deep shots down the field and getting all happy and celebrating and having a big time, that's fine. Me and James Franklin going to have it out at midfield.
Yeah.
Like one of us is getting our ass whipped today is the mentality I'd have.
Yeah.
And even then, you still should just stop them. But I agree 1,000% with James Franklin in that scenario.
Yep. And props to them, 11 wins. So they're going to the playoff as well. Number 9, we both had SMU. They are in the ACC championship game against Clemson. Win over Cal yesterday, 8-0 in their first year in the conference. It's crazy to think about. You got Oregon in the Big Ten. You got Texas in the SEC. You got Arizona State in the Big 12. And you got SMU in the ACC. All newcomers could win conferences this year.
Mm-hmm.
which again, it'll be an off-season tidbit of ours probably to talk about just the size of the conferences are getting to be too much. You can't even get equal amount of conferences in there, or equal amount of schedules and all that stuff.
Let's just call it what, dude. Again, both things can be true, man. This is the part again. It's like everybody acts like there's only one truth. Before the year started, when we had Kelly Ford, awesome at K Ford Ratings, by the way. Everybody should go follow him. Great follow. When we had Kelly Ford on our show, he literally we talked about with him what SMU schedule was ranked.
Yep.
In conference, and it was it was the easiest schedule in conference.
Yep.
Play. And Texas was the second easiest in conference schedule with Mizzou. Who again, Mizzou ends up going 9-3. If Mizzou has Florida's schedule and Florida has Mizzou's schedule, probably what would those records be? Exactly.
Yeah.
SMU had the easiest schedule of any contender in the ACC. And that's what their record ended up being. So let's call it what it is. SMU is a really good football team. They are. And they deserve to be in this ACC championship game. Really good football team. Playoff contender, absolutely. But they also had the easiest schedule in the ACC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't know what it is with these conference commissioners giving the newcomers, especially from Texas. That oil money must be talking big to get those easy schedules those first years. So
yeah.
All right, one last fight on our hands. 10, 11, and 12. I had Arizona State, Alabama. I had Arizona State, Ole Miss, Alabama. You had Alabama, Ole Miss, Arizona State. So they all averaged out to 11. My big thing here is I just think that the Big 12 is getting poo-pooed on too much. The ACC, if you think about it, I think I think the ACC is fourth in the Power Four conferences, and the Big 12 is third. Obviously, the top two have separated themselves. I just think the Big 12 is getting a little bit of the old Pac-12 disrespect that they used to get. And we fought hard for the Pac-12 last year. And it doesn't seem we're fighting as hard for the Big 12 this year. I think Arizona State has had a really good season.
Yeah.
And I think that what Kenny Dillingham has done there and turned that team around with the talent or lack of talent that they have, I think there's something to be said about that. And to go to the Big 12 championship and to have a chance at the college football playoff, that's fantastic.
I agree. But let's talk about comparing the resumes, though. Let me ask you this. If Alabama played Mississippi State at home and beat them by 3, what would you be saying about Alabama after the game? Or Georgia?
Well, Georgia beat them by 10, so.
Okay. But exactly, you did make fun of them earlier because they only beat them by 10.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe Arizona State beat Mississippi State at home by 3 points.
Mm-hmm. Early in the year.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not sliding Arizona State. I love Kenny Dillingham and I love the Fun Devils. Okay. But when comparing the resumes here, Arizona State's best win is BYU at home. Alabama beat, again, 2 teams that are going to be in this committee's top 15, probably top 14 in South Carolina and Georgia. And they have, I know we don't just, by the way, we don't subscribe to the part here of just because you've got hashtag ranked wins, because some of these teams that they end up ranking shouldn't be ranked. But again, Alabama does have 3 or 4 ranked wins. Ole Miss did beat Georgia by double digits. They did go to Williams-Brice and beat South Carolina 27-3. I personally think
that's why I put Ole Miss in front of Alabama.
Yeah, and I've told you that I'm not going to put up some huge argument that I think that Alabama should be ahead of Ole Miss or who should be ranked ahead of who in that situation. I'll hear the argument that if you think Ole Miss is a better football team than Alabama, I'll hear that argument. I will. But in regards to me having Alabama 10, Ole Miss at 11, and Arizona State at 12, I just think, number one, I think Alabama and Ole Miss are better football teams than Arizona State. And number two, when I look at their resumes.
What tells you that they're better football teams than Arizona State?
What
play on the field this year has said, yeah, they're clearly better than Arizona State.
Well, I think that what Ole Miss did at South Carolina, what Ole Miss did at Georgia.
Was it the Alabama-Oklahoma game?
No, it wasn't. Well, was Arizona State? Arizona State lost some games in the Big 12 too.
They lost to Cincinnati. They had Jeff Sims at quarterback. I don't know how many times I got to say it.
They did. They did. But is that Alabama and Ole Miss's fault that they had Jeff Sims playing in that game against Cincinnati, that they should be ranked behind them because of that?
We would talk about quarterbacks. I mean, Lenore Sellers went out second half of that LSU game.
So
this might be a moot point if he plays in that game and they win, and they're 10-2, and that just might be, they might be a lock for the playoff too if that were the case.
Oh, okay. Let me just ask you a simple question. You think that Arizona State is a better football team than Ole Miss and Alabama, and they have a better resume?
They do not have a better resume.
Okay. And you think they're better than Ole Miss and Alabama?
It's okay. I don't know if they're better. I don't know if they're better, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you think
I know who would be favored on a neutral field. I know all that.
And honestly, I don't, dude, by the way, for anybody listening to this, I don't care about that at all. I'm with you on that. Like, if there's a lot of people that still use that, well, so-and-so be favored if they play. I don't care about that at all. There's a lot of teams that be favored over so-and-so and they lose. I mean, Alabama was favored by 2 touchdowns at Oklahoma and got punked.
Yeah.
Ohio State was favored by $1 billion against Michigan and got punked. So I'm with you on that. I don't think that matters. I'm just looking at the comparison of the 3 teams, and I think resume-wise, Alabama has a better resume, Ole Miss has a better resume, and the only reason that anybody should have Arizona State ahead of Ole Miss and Alabama, in my humble opinion, will be because they've got 1 less loss than those other 2 teams. I believe Ole Miss beating the brakes off of Georgia and beating the brakes off of South Carolina trumps the fact that there's 1 less loss of a difference there.
Yeah, I mean, I think too. Like, I think it's a win-in game because I think if Arizona State loses to Iowa State, even if they were ranked ahead on the committee's rankings on Tuesday of these 2 teams, I think they would fall behind them. Like,
yeah,
I don't know why that is. Like, I don't know why we're all of a sudden like, oh, the ACC can get 2 or 3 teams in, right? Like,
I'm with you.
Yeah, what are we talking about? So
yeah, I think SMU Arizona State on a neutral field is a freaking favorite word, war.
Yeah.
If those 2 teams played on a neutral field. You're preaching to the choir here of why do we all of a sudden just think that it's automatic that one of these Big 12 teams should be left out and SMU is just automatically, they get to be considered in. And again, here's the reason why, man. You know the reason why. It's what we're talking about right now. 1 less loss in the loss column.
Yep. Well, one team we didn't mention in our top 12 was Miami. You got anything to say on Miami?
Yeah, Miami shouldn't be anywhere near this playoff. They should not be anywhere near. They should be like fired, gone, out. You have no wins that are worth a dang. Your strength of schedule is in the 50s. And all 3 of the SEC teams that we're talking about in comparison with Miami all have top like 15 ranked strength of schedules. The worst, actually look this up, of every single team that is right now in consideration for the playoff, that is either in the playoff field or on the bubble for the playoffs. I'm not counting the group of 5. I'm talking about the power conference teams. The worst unit of all those teams is the Miami defense.
Mm-hmm.
And my eyeballs tell me that, and the metrics tell me that the Miami defense is the worst. Now, on the flip side of that, Miami has the number 1 scoring offense in the country. Yes. But when you talk about balancing each other out, scoring offense and scoring defense and both sides of the ball, every other team in this playoff field is more balanced and better overall than Miami. And the fact that Miami, again, has, just because they have 2 losses, and Ole Miss has 3, and Alabama has 3, and South Carolina has 3, those 3 teams, it doesn't trump the fact that Miami has 0 good wins and multiple, losing at Syracuse is not a bad loss. It's not. It's still a loss, but it's not a bad loss. Losing to Georgia Tech isn't a terrible loss, but it's not some great loss by any means. But again, the fact that Alabama has 3 wins against this committee's top 25 teams and 2 wins against this committee's top 14 teams, and Ole Miss has 2 wins against teams in this committee's top 14, and South Carolina's got 3 or 4 #ranked wins, and a team that's actually in the ACC championship game right now, that of course Miami is not, that South Carolina just went to their place and won on the road at their place, that trumps the fact that Miami has 1 less loss. At some point, we have to look at this and say, okay, so you beat absolutely nobody, and 2 decent teams that you played, you lost. And you've got the worst defense of any team, period, that is in this field. I don't think Miami should be anywhere near this playoff hunt. Of the 4 teams being considered, they are the 4th, in my opinion.
Yeah. Don't be shocked if the committee has them ahead.
I agree.
And we'll talk about that more on our show on Tuesday night. But
I agree with you. I think I personally agree 1,000% with you. You and I have already talked about this.
yeah,
You have had your finger on the pulse of this committee. So far, up to this point, in every ranking that they've put out, they have valued having less losses, no matter the fact if you've beaten a soul or not. They don't care about your strength of schedule. They don't care who you've beat. They don't. As a matter of fact, they've almost cared more about who you lost to as opposed to who you've beaten. So the fact that Miami has 1 less loss in the loss column, and you're right, the fact that they've got that U brand, it's still a brand, I think helps them. I asked you this question last night. Let me ask you this live for all the folks to hear us here. If Miami's uniforms were blue and red and white, those gorgeous SMU unis with ponies on the side of their helmets, what do you think? What do you think Miami would be ranked right now if it was if you just flip flop it? If SMU had the same resume and the same situation that Miami's in, where do you think SMU would be right now?
Yeah, they would be behind those 3 SEC teams we're talking about because they've already had SMU behind 2-loss Georgia and 2-loss Tennessee with 1 loss. So, if they got 2 losses, they'd be behind those losses, those 3.
And again, therein lies the problem within the problem of college football in this overall committee.
Yeah. Okay.
That was fun.
Let's do a real quick conference championship, guess the spread. We got some games on Friday. We got some games on Saturday. Let's start off Friday night.
Okay.
The American Tulane is going on the road to Army after just absolutely laying an egg against Memphis.
This game's at West Point?
It's at West Point.
Ooh, conference championship game on the home field for the troops. Okay.
It's going to be freezing cold there at night.
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one. What do you think the spread is in this game?
I forgot this game was going to be on the road. I'll say them, what we got? Tulane, 3.5.
Army. Huh?
Tulane, 3.5, 3.
Tulane -4.
Okay, right there at it.
Mountain West Championship also on Fox at Boise State. It's UNLV at Boise State. Winner is 99% going to the college football playoff.
I'm going to say 100%.
Something crazy, I guess, can happen, but whatever.
Boise, 4.5.
Boise, 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Again, that's not far off, but that's interesting. Was Boise favored at UNLV when they played earlier this year? They were, weren't they?
Boise, what was that game in September? No, it was in October. Boise was -4 at UNLV. Yeah, and they won by 5.
Whoa. And they're laying less on the blue carpet.
They've not looked great.
They haven't. They have not. I agree.
So.
Okay.
Noon on Saturday in Jerry World, Iowa State at Arizona State.
Honestly, man, I have no idea. Iowa State 2.
Arizona State -2.5.
Okay, I was going to say one of them is going to be favored by 2. And I got it wrong. Okay.
Yeah. 4:00 in Atlanta, Georgia versus Texas.
Texas 3, 2.5, 3.
It is Texas -3.
Okay.
I think it opened up at 1 and it's already up to 3. Saturday night, ABC in Charlotte, Clemson versus SMU.
SMU 2.
This opened up at believe I saw a line last night, Clemson minus 1.5,
Mm-hmm.
and it is SMU minus 2.5 now.
Interesting.
4 points.
Yeah, we're going to get way into that game. But, man, I am super intrigued to see what SMU does on the line of scrimmage with Clemson's defensive line, man. Because Clemson's defensive line is real.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They were literally living in the backfield against South Carolina, and every other games I've watched them too. That D line is nasty.
Yeah.
And SMU has not seen a D line like that yet this year.
Yep. Last one, Saturday night, 8:00, CBS in Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium, Penn State versus Oregon, which we'll talk more about it Tuesday night, but we will be attending that game.
We will. Me and your boy here will be there together. Which, by the way, if you're listening, hit us up, DM us if you listen and you're going to be in Indianapolis. Let us know.
Yep.
We like cold beer and good food, too, out there nearby Lucas Oil watching the SEC championship game. So hit your boys up. I'm going to say the Quack Attack, the Ducks, 6.
Oregon minus 3.5.
Ooh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I know.
Okay. That is definitely lower than I thought it was going to be.
Yep. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, man. I mean, at this point, I know everybody, it's really been this way for the last few weeks. It's almost taken away from like just enjoying the games on the field.
Yeah.
The playoff talk, that's just all everything comes down to.
Yep.
But going into this, I'm excited for Tuesday night, the live show, because I think that's going to be the most contested one that we've had. Could be, depending on where they've got Miami. But it really does come down to where do they have Miami in relation to those other 3 SEC teams.
Yeah.
Those other 3 SEC teams, which one is ahead of each other? Like, which one is the leader of the pack? Is it Alabama? Is it South Carolina? Or is it Ole Miss?
Yeah.
And whoever it is from the SEC that is the leader of that pack, are they ahead of Miami or is Miami ahead of them?
Yep.
If Miami is ahead of them, there's no way that the last week of the season that they're not playing they can jump. So, and then obviously it comes down to like what you said, that ACC championship game. As far as could Clemson be the proverbial college basketball term that everybody uses, bid stealer?
Yeah.
Could they be this year's bid stealer? Because they can. They obviously can, especially with that line where it's at.
Yeah. We'll see. And they're playing close to home. SMU's got to travel, so Dabo's usually been pretty good in championship games in the past.
And,
so,
dude, that stadium, growing up being also a Virginia Tech fan as well, Charlotte will be packed with purple and orange.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be almost a home game, man.
Yeah.
For Clemson. It really will. It'll be almost, especially with the fact of what's on the line.
Yeah.
In that game. There won't be, maybe I'll eat my words on this. I'm serious, man. I think it might be 80-20.
Yeah. And then this is SMU's first time in a big conference championship game like this. So a lot of pressure. So we'll see what happens. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Follow us, like us, everything. Share the show, all that good stuff. Like we said, we'll be back on Tuesday night for the College Football Rankings live reaction show. And then later on in the week for conference preview episode. So appreciate you guys listening, and then we'll see you next time.